What's up, good people? Hey, how you guys doing? I'm back, and I'm back as a new mommy. Yay! Last time my video, it was about journey to mommyhood, and I shared with you my experiences through pregnancy, and God has been so faithful. She's a healthy baby girl, and she's moving and growing like right before my eyes. So I am just thank you for your prayers, and I'll be sharing another video about that experience. But today my video is called "Is So You Say You Know Who You Are." And so basically, so you say you know who you are. I think about who we say that we are. And as I started preparing for this, I began to think about a time when I used to be really big into astrology and your sign, and the characteristics of your sign and the things that defined your particular sign. And I used to tell people, well, I'm a Pisces, and Pisces do this, and I'm team Pisces, and this is my sign. And a little bit of who I said that I was had to do with an astrology sign. And as I grew in the Lord, I learned that was not of God, and that I should not live my life based on what a sign says that I am, that it's not of God. But at that time, that was really how I defined myself, was my sign. I was really into that. And so I think about so many times that people, we define ourselves. It might not be with an astrology sign, but it might be with our jobs. It might be who we're married to. It might be we define ourselves with who we're affiliated with. We might define ourselves with the friends that we hang with, the degree that we have. We define ourselves in many different things. Even in the church, y'all, we define ourselves, by denominations and all types of things. Even race. That's how we define. Well, this is how we define ourselves, and it's the truth. And I began to think about, how does God define us? That it really doesn't matter how we see ourselves, but it's about how God sees us. And so as I was preparing this little so you say you know who you are, as I was preparing it, I went to the book of Luke, and I was reading the account of Lazarus and the rich man. And Lazarus, he was a beggar. He stood at the gates, and he was a beggar. He was poor. He was looked down upon. He had sores on him, and people would look at him as not of any importance. He was a beggar, and that was looked down and shunned upon. And then there was the rich man. And the rich man had fine clothing, and he had influence, and he was rich. He had money. He had accumulated wealth. But you know what's funny is that we all will die. We are all going to die. And Lazarus and the rich man, they die. Lazarus will go to spend his life in eternity. He will spend his time among the Father, before the Father. And then the rich man, he will go on to hell. And the story of Luke tells the account of the rich man begging of Lazarus just to touch the tip of his finger with cool water. And he said, let me tell my family about, hell, that it's real. And that was denied. But what I find funny is that I'm sure that the rich man never saw himself in hell. He thought that he had wealth, and I'm sure he never associated himself with, oh, I'm going to die and I'm going to go to hell, and Lazarus will go to heaven. I'm sure he never saw himself like that in his earthly life. And I think about so many times how we see ourselves and how we define what we think we deserve, or as the rich man, who we think we are, or what society says that we are, how we give our claim to fame, if we might say. And I'm sure he didn't see himself as that, or the rich man didn't see himself as spending that time in hell. And similarly, I think that we go through times and we define ourselves. And I think God's looking at us like, okay, this is how you see yourself, but this is how I see you. And many times we spend our life in seasons. The Bible talks a lot about time, and from time to time to time. And the seasons of summer and winter and fall, our lives are like seasons. And there may be a time of growing. There may be a time of being challenged. There may be a time of maturity. There may be a time of just sitting back in observation. And God, in those times, he grooms us and he grows us is in those seasons. And he looks at us and said, I define you, in that time when I was stretching you and I prepared you for this, or when I prepared you for that, or even when I took this away from you. There was a man that I know, a man of God, and he was doing the gospel, him and his wife, and they had a large family, and the wife suddenly got sick and she died. And I remember during that time that he would have to go on to raise the children by himself. And I'm sure in that time, he never saw himself raising a family apart from his wife. And in that time, he still gave glory to God. He still did the work of God. He still raised his children in the fear of the Lord. And he still was a servant that was committed to God. And I think about that and I'm like, he probably didn't enjoy that. That probably wasn't funny, but he didn't curse God and he still remained faithful to him. And so many times we look at what we think that we may experience and what we don't experience. And we don't even think about some of the things that God may put us through to grow us and to strengthen us for his glory, to be a testament to other people. And in that, what is God saying? He's saying that I'm equipping you. I'm showing you humility to not think of yourself higher than you ought. I'm directing you. I'm showing you your way, that I lead you. That show gratitude to me because I am the person that directs your path in all situations. And so we never should say, oh, I'm this or I'm that, because you never know what God might do. I think about the book of Ecclesiastes. It's one of my favorite books. And I think about Solomon. And he talks about his life and having wealth and having many wives. And he said all of it was meaningless. Everything, it meant nothing. Because in his life, at the end of it, his life was centered around God. And that he was God's and that was it. It didn't matter what he had, the riches he had, the wisdom he had. It was all about God. And so I think that as we stay humble and as we stay connected to God and we stay in prayer and we look to God to show us and to lead us and to be our guide in all the days of our lives, that is how we should see ourselves. And that's who we should say, that is who we know that we are, is through what God says. And that everything else is meaningless. Jobs are meaningless. Everything is meaningless except how God sees us. And so this is going to be part 2. There'll be a part 2 to the part 1 of So You Say You Know Who You Are. And so until next time, I'll see you next time. Peace out. Be blessed.
Illusion or myth. Yeah. Bad things. There's a lot of bad things that they wish and 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 they make.